During my high school days, I read a lot of creepypastas because I thought to myself, hey, this is what the kids are into these days, so might as well.
Okay.
And so I read the classics, Jeff the Killer, Slender Man, Smile Dog, etc, etc. And after that, I decided to explore one of the most popular subcategories of creepypastas, gaming pastas. You all know the classics like Ben Drowned, The Theater, Polybius, or any of the million billion Pokemon pastas. And I realized something. Some gaming creepypastas are good because they have footage or images to complement the story, making them seem like they were documented experiences that really happened to someone, but most importantly, because they're narrated in a subtle and credible way. And then there are creepypastas that have none of that subtlety or credibility, and instead aim for the shock type of horror by presenting loads of pointless violence and gore, and often, the main characters will keep making stupid decisions or be completely impossible to sympathize with. And as such, we have loads of creepypastas that are impossible to take seriously even though they try to be serious. Case in point, Blood Whistle. Often regarded as one of the worst creepypastas ever written, this story has been ridiculed for as long as it has existed. As I've mentioned before, this story desperately tries to be serious but ultimately comes off as incredibly ridiculous. But is there more to it than that? Is there something else to this story that just baffles those who read it? Well, we are going to find out. Also, just a heads up, this story is ridiculously long, so it will likely be split into multiple parts. Even if I were to summarize everything, it would still be a very long video, so bear with me for the time being. Well, now that all of that has been said, sit back and relax as we go into Blood Whistle. Sorry. A friend of mine recently sent me what he claims to be a scary Super Mario Bros. 3 hack that he wanted me to try out, because he didn't have the courage. That's a good sign. I started this blog to record my progress through the game. He got this from a site that's no longer active. Also a good sign. And I've seen some pretty scary occurrences with emulator games before. Just look at Ben. Ben was a physical cartridge, not an emulator, but that's the least of the problems with this story. The protagonist then buggers off and the next day he plays the game and finds nothing out of the ordinary. You know, exactly how every single gaming creepypasta starts. Until he finds a secret. I wish I hadn't unlocked that secret. This game will be the bane of my existence. I'll try as best as I can to explain what happened and what will certainly entail. I don't know if any of you will believe me, but this sick mockery of one of my childhood favorites must be exploited and never be seen by the eyes of any other breathing man on God's green earth. Wow, you suddenly got wordy. Usually when I see something that upsets me, I just say screw this and complain about it on Twitter. My whole life before I hit up on my arrow keypad was completely different. I was happy. I was normal. I could wake up in the morning recognizing my own reflection, being absolute about my safety. Now it's lies. All lies. I know that as of what happened today, my life will become an infernal hell in which every day will be a futile struggle to retain my own sanity. After finishing this wretched collage of electronic dejection, I will embrace death like a long-lost lover with open arms. Now to get on with what had come to pass. Oh my, that sounds horrible! What did you see that changed your life forever? I can only imagine it must have been terrifying beyond belief. What? The blocks that lined the wall were a gloomy, albeit polished obsidian black. Mario's skin now had a grayish tint to it, but that wasn't what was wrong with that picture. The music was a sped up version of the normal bonus room theme. Toad's skull was cracked open and profusely bleeding, spilling blood onto the floor and making the room slippery like an ice stage. His mouth was also agape and spewing blood onto the floor. The blood had an eerie, reflective quality that should have been graphically impossible for an 8-bit game like Mario 3. Impossible for MS Paint too, apparently. I walked up to him to see what it was that he might say. What he had to offer is this. Blood Whistle. Here, it's cry. In caps lock, because it's serious business. A blood-soaked warp whistle ominously rose from what I now believe to be the deepest crevice of hell. It blipped twice as the normal whistle would. That, my fellow reader, was the only normality of what I have played today. It played a deep tune that I can't get out of my head as I write this. The whistle descended, violently striking Mario in the chest. He unleashed a blood-curdling scream as it went into his back and out of his chest. This cry wasn't 8-bit at all. It wasn't even cartoon-esque. It was the sound of unfiltered anguish, of utter agony. His expression reflected the same too. To end my experience on this perverse version of something I once loved, Mario was transported to the warp zone of the Blood Whistle. Protagonist then enters the warp zone, which, according to his description, is almost exactly what Sonic.exe looked like. Blood and dead bodies everywhere. The whistle then stabs Mario yet again, jeez, what is that thing's problem, and the protagonist is teleported to World 2 before deciding to quit for the day. Despite the horrors that plague this abomination, I will continue to subject myself to this suffering for the sake of all of you. Well, also for mine. It'll help me keep track of the days, and maybe this desperate attempt to cling to my stable frame of mind won't prove to be in total vain. Spoiler alert, yes it will. There are 5,000 people that have followed this blog in the 2 days that it's been up. Holy crap dude, 5k in 2 days? I'm jealous. I mean, I've had a Tumblr for over a year now and I barely have over 200 followers. After this pointedly interesting post, I'm hoping to have some more. For those of you following my posts, read tomorrow's and share with your friends. I need to expose the stark lurdiness of this shell of something I once knew and loved. Well, I did it. I managed to clinch the fickle fibers of my perception of reality long enough to play through World 2. I have come to the conclusion that whoever made this is completely and utterly deranged. There's been a rusted gear or a broken spring in the mechanics of their sadistic mind. Their only purpose in creating this mod was to mentally and psychologically flagellate the naive soul poor enough to take the bait of its mysterious origin. Well, I'm certainly naive enough to fall into that category. I digress to the experience. GG, protagonist. GG. Blood of the same texture from before was just as splattered across the desert sands as sand itself was. Solitary eyes watched me from the pyramids. Pentagrams and other satanic symbols were also infrequent in the environment. Could this hack be the work of the Illuminati? Sorry about that. I had to force back a laugh. So, more blood, more skeletons, he describes how Mario looks like he's about to die, and he goes into the 2-1 block. The stage itself was very scary. The sky was grayish-blue, accompanied by an almost white sun. The colors weren't bright or cheery in the slightest. The pyramid blocks were faded and cracked, and the wooden blocks were obviously rotting. Mario's pride was visibly starving and pleading for thirst. You mean pleading for water? I can't think of anyone who would plead for thirst. The fire creatures fixedly stared at me like a shark stares at a school of fish, seeming to know who their next meal was. He continues to go through the level until the blood whistle appears again and stabs Mario again. You know, you should be used to that at this point. He was miraculously alive, his body twitching in a feeble attempt to rise. A fire creature jumped on Mario, who was now pinned to the ground and screaming in pain. It reeked of such ineffable pain that it hurts me now to describe the sheer degree of torture this character was put through. There he was, burning and seething in pain, and there I sat, completely powerless, forced to watch what I thought was the end of his trials on World 2. Dude, Mario has been crushed, electrocuted, and even disintegrated along his many adventures. I think he'll be fine. The level select came into view. Whistled through back, Mario was transported to one of the pyramid levels. When the level started, the background was an egregious smoke-filled black. Bursts of lightning filled the sky with illumination. Winged demons in flight were visible upon these strikes. Also in the skies glowed stagnantly lit pentagrams and 666. Is this a creepypasta or the interior of a Hot Topic? Mario is then carried by two of the Koopalings to the top of one of the pyramids, and once at the top we see what the protagonist claims is the worst thing yet, and he goes into great lengths to describe it, so I'm gonna give you the abridged version. We see Bowser looking very evil and covered in blood and stuff, then one of the Koopalings rips Mario's heart out with a knife and Bowser eats it. There. Why would they treat him as an animal, if not less for their amusement? Why would someone initiate the genesis of such a horrid contraption? Initiate the genesis. Isn't that the subtitle for the next Evangelion movie? A contraption in which life and death have no meaning and are manipulated. A contraption in which concepts such as morals, remorse, and mercy are completely foreign. So basically the YouTube comment section, am I right? It makes me shudder to think that there is someone sick enough out there to put a character through this kind of unbearable hell just to sit back and laugh. It makes me absolutely sick to my core. Then you will most likely hate Gary's mod. Oh, that reminds me of another thing. You are probably wondering as to why I complacently talk about Mario as if he's a human being. A human who suffers pain, sorrow, depression, starvation, and thirst like the rest of us. A human who is also capable of feeling happiness, remorse, goodwill, and love like everyone else. It's because I am thoroughly convinced that he is. Every year, millions of Marios suffer from abuse, sometimes for amusement purposes. But that abuse stops now. Subscribe to the World Mario Foundation, and with 4 easy payments of 99.99.99, you can help save these unfortunate Italian plumbers. Subscribe to the World Mario Foundation today and save a life tomorrow.